Hey, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Let's go back to Players of the Week from last week. Warren Long was our Offensive Player of the Week. Thought Warren played very well. Big playmaker was Danny Vitale. I thought a really good bounce-back game for Dan. I think all 4 of his receptions were for first downs. Deontay Gibson was our Defensive Player of the Week. He's played very well in his first two games here as a senior, and then staff couldn't make a decision. So Matt Harris on his 2 big picks and 1 for a touchdown, then Dean Lowry, our big playmakers on defense. Special teams-wise, Chris Fitzpatrick, our snapper, had a great day and probably one of his better days of his career. Offensive practice player was James Prather. Defensive practice player was Parker Westfall, and Josh Roberts was our special teams practice player of the week. Moved down pretty quickly this morning from the game. Had probably about 25, 30 minutes worth of things we wanted to get corrected and get fixed. And then moved on quickly to an outstanding opponent. Going to be a great challenge for us going on the road for the first time. How we handle the success this week obviously will be a great indication by the way that we prepare. But playing an outstanding team, complete in all 3 phases. Outstanding offensively, defensively, in the kicking game. Very good friends with David Cutcliffe. I got terrific respect for David, his staff, the job that they've done, and continue to do. Great talent across the board. So it's going to be a great challenge. I know our guys will work hard to prepare. So with that, how about some questions?
Pat, you had to play some guys on the offensive line Saturday who hadn't started before. What did you see from them, and any update on the guys who weren't able to go on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought from the standpoint of the guys that got their first starts, it was unfortunate for Adam, to get hurt. He'll be out this week. I'll know how long, probably this afternoon when I get my updated injury report. Rest of the guys ran around this morning, so we'll see how the week progresses, but a lot better than they were a week ago.
Pat, with your rotation of running backs, who makes the call, which running back goes in, and what different attributes do each of them bring to the table?
Yeah, Friday night meeting, they just play rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and whoever wins goes first, after Justin. So, really what we want to try to do is play as many guys here early as we possibly can. It's a long year. Saturday obviously was a little bit unique that we were able to play all the way to Tom Ruby, right? I hope that happens again. That would be great. I'm not going to hold my breath though. So, we've got a plan. We try to play to the guys' strengths, and they're doing a great job. All of them are doing a great job in practice, and I like the way that they played.
What are the specific strengths of each of those 3 individuals?
Everything. Yeah, they do everything well. Yeah, yep, absolutely.
What sort of challenge is there when you don't have a lot of tape on a guy? I know Thomas Sirk only started a couple games for Duke. What sort of challenge does that pose for you all?
Well, I mean, you've got to do a great job researching not only what they've done in these 2 games, but then, also schematically what they did a year ago. Try to predict to the best of our ability. They've been pretty vanilla, the first 2 weeks. So to predict, what we should anticipate seeing. So it's a great challenge on our defensive staff. To expose our defense to what we think we're going to see, and then just be prepared to adjust. That's probably the most important thing. Just talk to our guys about our base plan, and then we'll anticipate doing a lot of adjusting. And we've been here before. Like I said, this is the first year that we've gone in, I think, to a year without new coordinators or a new head coach in every game. So from a schematic standpoint, they do a great job offensively. So it's going to be a great challenge. He's a dynamic athlete. He's a dual threat guy. He went in crunch time plays last year, short yardage, goal line plays. So he's been out there. He's been out there more than just 2 games. He's an impressive athlete, really good player.
Coach, Clayton Thorson has done a good job of being efficient and sort of managing the first couple of games. As he progresses and you expand the options for him offensively, do you have to be careful about going, pacing yourself in terms of giving him too much? You know where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I do, Fred. Yeah, absolutely. We've typically got a plan for young players on how we want to bring them along, and Clayton falls under that. Unfortunately for him, though, he's in a unique position. If he was a running back or a linebacker or DB wide receiver, we could package some things for him. He's got a great grasp of the entire offense, and we'll continue to try to play to his strengths, bring him along, as we have in previous years when we've had a first-time starter quarterback. So we'll see how things progress this week.
Coach, have you liked the progression of Anthony Walker, and has he improved at all in some of the little things that you said that he had room to improve?
Yeah, I think Anthony, number one, from a leadership standpoint, I think feels much more comfortable being out in front of the group and, really being the guy that says, follow me, the way that he's going about his film prep, the way that he's preparing mentally, and then obviously his preparation physically. He really comes every day ready to go with a great attitude and works his tail off. And then on the field, he's been pretty darn good unblocked. I think he's going to get blocked a few more times now, but he's just done the fundamental things well, which at linebacker, that's really all you need to do. And then he's just got to continue to grow and evolve like every player. There's certain things, like the first play of the game last week, we were talking on the boundary, probably didn't need a dive, just keep running. The ball's going to get turned back inside to you. But he's playing at a very high level right now.
So I think the last time Northwestern played Duke was 2008.
Okay.
They've kind of come a long way since then with their program. What do you think? Would you attribute that to, or what do you think of their program?
Yeah, well, it starts with David. I think Coach Cutt is number one, a terrific person. He's an outstanding football coach, and he's got a plan. And they obviously stuck to their plan. They've worked their plan, and they've gone out and I see a lot of similarities in our programs. They do a great job. They play hard. They play physical. They play fast. They're a very fast team. This will be the fastest team we've played yet this year. So we'll kind of see where we're at from that standpoint. He's done a great job. A lot of respect for him.
Coach, I see you have some shuffling in the offensive line here on the depth chart. I guess my first question is, how is Brad doing? Was he close to playing on Saturday?
Yeah, we had him for emergency use if we needed him.
So is he, if he's healthy, would you start him at center, or is that still up in the air?
Yeah, we'll see how the week goes.
Okay.
Yeah. I talked to you guys about it 2 weeks ago. He didn't snap the ball well enough, a couple weeks ago, obviously. And so he's got to be better. He's got to be more consistent. Didn't practice a lot last week, so we'll see how this week goes.
And Connor Mahoney's listed now as a starter at left guard. Has he transitioned pretty quickly? I mean, I know he was a defensive player last year. How has the transition gone for him?
It's an evolution. Yeah, he's still evolving. Yeah, he's not there yet. I would say that about our whole line. We're far from being where we need to be, but I think those guys are working. They had a much better week last week in practice than they did game against Stanford. I think there were some good things on Saturday, and then some areas that we can't have. But the good news for them is they've got 3 backs that are pretty good behind them. That when we're blocking it for about 1 yard, our backs are getting about 3. So I'd like to start blocking for 4 yards and seeing what we can do then. That would be encouraging.
You've practiced through the heat now. How do you prepare this team for the mugginess that usually awaits you down at Duke?
Well, you just the way that you practice. We'll practice at an up tempo. We've had a lot of heat here. 2 weeks ago, I think it'll be warmer this week than it was last week, which will help. But we've got a plan that no matter what the weather is here, we've got a plan for how we prepare for this type of scenario. And everybody on the travel squad, all 70 guys, will be eligible to play. So if we got to play all 70, we'll play all 70.
Ranked 23 AP poll. How do you accept that as an acknowledgement, a reward, or just something to not even pay attention to?
Yeah, I talked to the guys about that this morning. 3 weeks ago. I think the only thing written was negative, so I asked them not to focus on those distractions, and I would ask them to do the same thing. And the only thing that matters, quite frankly, ranking-wise, is how you're ranking against your own best self. How you're preparing mentally and how you're preparing physically. And I read them a great poem every year in camp called "The Man in the Glass," and that's the only thing that matters is, what are you doing compared to yourself? And, quite frankly, I expect to be ranked. I expect our team to compete for championships, so it's not a surprise to me. But, based on the way that we played and performed inconsistently the last 2 years, I think it's one of those situations where maybe it's a positive for the program, but not a surprise. But you got to earn that every second of every day. But it's just a distraction if you focus on it.
Fitz, based on your experience starting new quarterbacks, what sort of progression do you like to see week to week, and what aspects of the game come easier, and what things take longer over the course of the season to develop?
Well, from a quarterback standpoint, every day it's something new. You look at last night, the 4-minute drill by the Giants. I don't know if you guys are Giants fans, but come on now. Snap the ball a little bit later. You're watching the game as a coach, and it's one of those things. I saw Clayton today. I said, "What'd you learn last night watching the game?" It's just, it never ends, I guess is what I would say. And that's not a good player in Eli. It's a great player. So I think that never ends. So, I just want him to keep getting 1% better every rep, keep learning, keep growing, and take care of the football. I mean, he's got to take care of the ball. I thought again Saturday he did a much better job of that than he did week one. I thought week one we made probably 4 decisions with the football that probably weren't very wise, and we were able to get away with it. Where I thought, especially maybe it was the first quarter, we were backed up a little bit, scrambles out of the end zone when Adam gets hurt. Maybe could have forced one. He throws the ball away. Good decision. Maybe could have run, maybe not, but a good decision throwing the ball away instead of trying to force it. Punt was a good play there. So, it's a sign of maturity.
And then I know a couple years ago and even last year, Chichi Arguza was talking about when the losses start to pile up, there's kind of a start to question in the locker room. What sort of attitude reversal have you seen through these first 2 games? Is that belief back?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, anytime you lose a football game, I think you always look inward and you really challenge yourself as a coach and you challenge everybody in the program about what we could have done better and then how we're going to do things better. But if you don't believe and you don't have hope, you don't have a chance. So, I think from a standpoint of where we're at right now, I think we've understood that we've earned these 2 victories by the way that we've prepared and the way that we've performed. And then when you watch the tape, we're not even close, in my opinion, to where we can potentially be. So just a lot of work ahead of us.
The offensive lineman, Connor, why did you switch him from defense to offense?
Well, we wanted to create more athleticism and competition on the offensive line. He was kind of, maybe 5th, 4, 5 in the D tackle rotation. I saw the Oxley's coming on, the Wyatt's coming on, getting Lancaster back, and I just kind of felt like our younger depth in the D line was going to maybe force Connor into a tougher situation. And I told him I was moving him over there to compete to start, to O-line, that is. And through a injury, he gets his opportunity, and that's all you can control is your attitude and whether or not you're prepared for when it happens. And he's done a pretty good job with that.
Was it tight end in high school?
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver?
Wide receiver.
How do you see a wide receiver as a...
Yeah, that's a whole nother, we'll talk off camera. How does that sound?
And then talk about the maturity of the team. I mean, where is it right now?
Yeah, well, I'd say we've had one test, from a standpoint of how mature we are, and I think we passed it with an A.
The Eastern game.
Yeah, we passed it with an A. I mean, who wasn't going to get up for Stanford, right?
Right.
So I think we passed the first test. Now let's see how we do the second one.
Is this a test of maturity too?
No doubt. I mean, you were playing a great team, but the maturity more has to do with, are we, again, a team that is going to allow distractions to impact us, or are we going to focus? And that's what I talked to them today about great teams. And immature guys have their focus like this, and great players are able to focus here. Great teams are able to focus right here. What's important right now, and that's where we need to go. And right now, it's the film prep, getting ready for tomorrow. How we go about our process of game planning and how we go about our process installing and practicing. And I thought last Tuesday was an excellent practice, but I felt like the coaches had to carry it at the start, and I want to see our leadership carry it now tomorrow. And I think, I see that, we'll take a positive step forward.
Coach, I know you said Jack Mitchell was recovering from like a nagging injury during training camp. Is that the reason you've had Matt on kickoffs, or is he sort of like your kickoff specialist now?
Yeah, no, that's why Matt's kicked off, yeah.
If when Jack is fully healthy, would you expect him to go back there?
I don't know. We'll see.
Not sure.
Yeah, we'll see.
You mentioned Duke's exceptional speed as a team. Any other general characteristics of that team that you've been able to observe so far?
Yeah, well, in the kicking game, it's really impressive. I think they've set up scores. They've scored touchdowns 6 of the last 7 games and set up 6 other scores. The return game is dynamic. Their kickoff coverage group is great. Their punt scheme, they put a lot of pressure on you formationally. Got an All-American, All-ACC punter, All-American, All-ACC kicker. Same thing with the return man. They've got a very dynamic track athlete returning punts who's fast. He's Venrick Mark fast for our fans, so he can really go. He's dynamic. And then they play a lot of starters, similar to us. They play a lot of starters in the kicking game. So that jumps out to me, and I start with the character of the football team there, and to me this is one of the highest character teams that we've played from that standpoint. And then, offensively, similar to things that we've seen from other opponents, their gap scheme, power running game, quarterback run game, play action pass off of it. I've got very good speed on the perimeter. Have some backs that aren't playing, but now the guys that have filled in are tough. They're physical. They understand what they're doing schematically, and then defensively, they're very aggressive. They came after Tulane. They were very, very aggressive against Tulane, and held them off the scoreboard. And the stats are obvious. And to me, Jeremy Cash is a great player. Their field backer. He's a great player. He's great in the kicking game. He's an absolutely terrific football player. He's fun to watch on tape. And then they roll about 6 guys at D tackle. So they've got a very good football team. It's going to be a huge test for us, no doubt about it.
How do you think your punter's been?
Yeah, well, we had a plan for him in the opener. He only had 2 punts. He had one into the wind I thought was really good on Saturday. I think it was like a 4-point-something hang. Obviously you'd like a little bit more distance, but it was a great hang into the wind. And then the punt that we had with the wind, he just had us drop a little bit inside, but still had a good target, good area location with the punt, but just maybe left probably about 10, 15 yards out there with his drop.
What sort of challenges does Duke's 4-2-5 present? It's a little bit different defense than what you normally face.
Yeah, I mean, you just do your research on a team, and they're built for speed. I mean, they're a fast football team. They're fast on offense. They play up tempo, and then their defense is a speed. I mean, they're physical up front. There's no doubt about that. But they're fast. I mean, that's you get more athletes on the field. You get coverage multiplicity. You can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of things when you've got that guy out there.
Just looking at sort of his athleticism and his size, Thomas Sirk is really comparable to Clayton Thorson in a lot of ways. How do you think that gives you an advantage, given that you go up against Clayton every day in practice?
Yeah, I'm not sure it gives us an advantage at all, frankly. I mean, you're right, he's a big athlete. He can really run. He throws it well. He's just more experienced than Clayton. He's been in their program for a number of years. But from that standpoint, we're going to have to get ready to play their plays and play their formations. And it's a great challenge on our defense. Like I said, we only have 2 games of evidence. We know they're very vanilla, in what they've done, and we're going to have to plan to adjust. And they're going to play fast. They've got an advantage with the heat and being used to it. So we'll have to play a lot of guys. There's no doubt about that.
Anything else for Coach? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Go Cats.